Good evening, I'm Nahjee Grant and you're watching On the Rise. I'm pleased to welcome to the program a music educator and the author of the Armchair Drummer, BJ Capelli. BJ, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, I'm excited. I know from our conversation right before we aired that we're closer neighbors than we originally thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as Ardmore residents, I'm pretty excited to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great town to live in.
Absolutely. That's a small plug, right, for the hometown.
Yeah, that's right.
So just tell me a little bit about what you currently do and then how you got involved just with music in general.
Well, I've been playing music as primarily a drummer and percussionist for close to 30 years at this point. Been teaching music for about 20 years. So it's pretty much kind of been a lifelong thing for me. And my degrees in music education. I was a public school music teacher for a while. And then since 2007, when I moved to Pennsylvania, I've primarily been focusing outside of the public school system in private teaching and coaching and that kind of stuff. So, most of my professional experience, for years I taught marching bands and, all those kinds of musical settings. So, most of my experience has been in music and in music education. Alongside of that, I've also been a performing musician that whole time as well. So, it's been really valuable for me to have be able to work on both sides of the music world. Also have some production background and radio and all these retail even. Right. So I've sort of tried to kind of get a really good handle on the whole world of the music business. But really when it comes down to it is, the center of my activity has always been music education. And so, now I do a lot of teaching, writing, and along with the Armchair Drummer book, I have developed a corporate team building and coaching program that sort of builds around the concepts of the book. I also have done a lot of the corporate, kind of drum circle type playing, which is kind of typical, but I really wanted to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. And that's sort of when people think of we're going to bring drummers in to, a corporate or a nonprofit or, some sort of retreat setting. It's almost always the drum circle thing, which is really cool. And, I've had great experiences with that. But I wanted to be able to offer something a little bit different too. And because I was working on the material from the book, I realized hey, this applies really well in that setting. And hey, wouldn't it be cool to take a drum set based approach to this as opposed to just the hand drumming thing?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited to have you on. I was, really excited when I seen the concept of the book. I mean, I even saw your Kickstarter as well, which I want to talk about as well.
Sure.
How you got that started. But even just like me before, where did your love for music come from?
That's actually a really good question because I don't know. I'm not really from a family of musicians. But when I was, I think, about 2 or 3 years old, I got a toy drum. And my parents said I kind of stopped playing with my other toys. So it was sort of, I think it just came from nature. It was just, I was born with it. Because, like I said, there weren't other musicians in my family, and it wasn't like I was surrounded. My parents always had music playing in the house, so I did always love listening to music. But as far as playing music goes, I got that toy drum, and then somewhere along the line, I just got it in my head that I'm going to be a drummer, I'm going to be a musician, and
here you are.
It worked.
Right. Well, you don't have to sugarcoat it. I mean, you were a child prodigy. You can just can say it.
Far from that.
You can say it. You were a child prodigy.
But I was focused. I knew what I wanted to do.
There you go. So. Good stuff. So, what other instruments is it besides drums, or is it just?
Well, as a percussionist, I do have a degree in music and the percussion world. So when you go to music school as a percussionist and you work in the percussion world outside of, say, just drum set in a rock band or jazz kind of setting, that sort of thing, you are really responsible for the whole family of percussion instruments, which is literally hundreds of instruments. Of course, nobody's an expert at all of them, so you sort of have proficiency at as many as you can, and as things come along, you get an ensemble, you get a part, you're like, never played that before, better do some homework,
right.
And you practice and you get it down. The core instruments in most classical music study are snare drum, timpani, like the kettle drums, and marimba, which is a large mallet instrument, kind of like a big xylophone.
Right. Well, I've heard of some of these names. I can't play any of them, but I definitely have heard of some of them. Back in music class back in like middle school.
Sure.
Okay. So tell me, I know that you started a Kickstarter. Was it a year ago?
About a year and a half ago.
And that was for the book.
Yes.
And and also there's a CD that comes along with it as well.
Yes.
Can you explain like the fundraising process when starting the book?
Well, that was intense. You know, this is the first book that I've ever published, and you know, this whole project, every step of the way has been a great learning experience. That's how I like to frame it. You know, there's it's sort of like you don't know what you don't know until you find out that you don't know it, and then you have to know it.
That's right.
If that makes any sense. So with the Kickstarter thing, you know, I knew that, you know, once I started putting the material for the book together, I had about 90% of the book done, and, you know, kind of went through and, okay, well, here's how much it's going to cost to actually get the design work done, get the music produced, get all the other pieces, and actually, you know, get the project done. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to probably foot that whole bill myself, so that's where I kind of turned to the crowdfunding thing. But I had read a lot of stories of unsuccessful Kickstarter campaigns, or, you know, crowdfunding in general. So I spent probably about 9 months or so doing homework on how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. I had some friends who had been successful, so I talked to them and got a lot of good information, and I just read like blogs and, you know, any article that anybody had written, and just kind of followed when, you know, would go on Kickstarter and just look at different projects and see which ones were successful and which ones weren't, and try to figure out why it went one way or the other. So once I felt like I had enough information, you know, I put the whole campaign together, and, you know, involved making a video, posting kind of a written summary of what the project was, and, you know, fortunately, I had a lot of really good support, and, you know, a lot of friends, a lot of family, and, you know, even some strangers that kind of saw the project and thought, hey, this sounds really cool, I want to contribute and I want to help make this happen, and met the goal, and
here you are.
Here we are.
Here you are. So take me through the process, like when you were writing the book. You say your first book.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Well, from sort of like beginning of the concept and beginning of putting the actual material together. I mean, the system that's in the book, I mean, Armchair Drummer isn't just the book per se, it's also the system that it's built around. I mean, the book is Armchair Drummer, the easiest way to start playing the drums. It's a system that I developed over, you know, a bunch of years of teaching. And so I had sort of like the concept and the system and the teaching method all together beforehand. But once I decided, like, okay, this is actually going to be a book and I need to lay out how this is going to work, from that point until when the book was actually in my hand was about 2.5 years, which was about twice as long as I thought it was going to take.
That's how life is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how life is. So take me through exactly like what's in the book, because you're explaining how to play the drums.
Right, exactly. Right. So, you know, I'll probably start with sort of kind of the concept for the book and where this came from. You know, what I was thinking was, you know, I've been teaching all these years, and I've taught a lot of students of different ages, everywhere from 3, I think, at the youngest, all the way up to 80-something. So what I found, especially with a lot of adults, is that, oh man, I always wanted to play the drums. You know, this is people, not even just my students, but people that I've talked to and friends and everything. Like, oh, I really wanted to play the drums, but yeah, you know, I don't read music, and I don't want to buy a drum set, and like, I don't know if I'm going to really be into it. It's like a whole lot of commitment, and it kind of is. I mean, it's, you know, buying a drum set and bringing that in your house is a lot of money and a lot of space and a lot of sound, and, you know, all those things. A lot of noise. Yeah, right. A lot of noise, you know, especially at the beginning, you know, and which I should add a side note to that. Pretty much every student I've ever had whose parents were hesitant to bring a drum set into the house, and even my parents will say the same thing. Once the drum set's there and they're hearing the music going on, it's great. Like, I've never had a parent say to me, oh man, I really wish we hadn't bought the drum set. A lot of them are like, I don't know if this is a great idea. And then once it's there and they hear, you know, the practicing and the music and it's getting better and better, most people, my parents always said, oh, we don't even hear it anymore. My dad would take naps when I was practicing. So anyway, it still is, it tends to be a barrier to entry for a lot of people. And if they don't have prior musical experience, if they don't read music, the idea of trying to go get books and learn how to play, and it's very intimidating. So what I set out to do was create a way that you could learn to play the instrument. You could do it in a very kind of low commitment, low impact way, and, you know, and do so at your own pace, but also have it still be a fun experience. You know, a lot of people don't want to go out and start taking lessons, and the expense that goes along with that, and the commitment, and my schedule's not going to allow it. So the idea behind the system in the book is that you do this in your home. You can do it. You don't need a drum set. You literally can do it in your armchair or your desk or your dining room table. And you don't need to be able to read music or have any musical background, because all of the things that are taught in the book are taught via a graphical system. So basically you're looking at pictures.
Right.
As long as you can look at pictures and count to 4, then you can handle the patterns in the book.
Oh, so you mean it would be even great for me, because I have no background in music whatsoever. So perfect for me because I'm a very visual person. And then also you have a CD attached to it as well. So what are you showing on the CD?
So the whole idea with the CD is, there's a lot of books that teach you to play. And some of them, there aren't any that use the graphic format, which is, I have a library of hundreds and hundreds of drum books, and I've probably seen every other one that I haven't, that I don't own anyway. And in all of the books that are available in the market, nothing was teaching this way. But assuming that, okay, yeah, I can grab whatever, and I know how to read music, so if somebody was in that position, it's still like I'm just sitting here playing by myself. So I didn't want this to be that kind of experience. So I got together with a really talented friend of mine, Juna Bosco, who's a great guitarist, and we wrote basically an album's worth of original songs to play along with. So the way it works, the book comes with a CD and also a digital download card for the, just grab the MP3s and load them onto your iPod. The idea is each pattern that you learn in the book has a song that goes with it. So you practice the pattern, you look at the graphic, the pictogram, and learn the pattern. And once you're like, okay, I have this, you put on the song, and now you have something to play along with. And then each song is on there with 2 different versions. So the one version has drums in it, like a regular song would, is me playing the drums. And then there's a second version where the drums are taken out, kind of the music -1 concept. You just have a cowbell to help you keep time. But once you feel like, cool, yeah, I got this down, I don't want to hear anybody else playing the drums, I want to hear me, then you go to the next track, and there's that. And then later on in the book, it actually gets to a point where we have what we call the advanced play-alongs, and those are where you're using multiple patterns, different ones that you've learned in combination, like, because most songs, if you listen on the radio, most songs do change the part throughout the song, so it works its way up to that, so you actually play along like you're playing a song from the radio.
Interesting.
And the other thing that's great about the patterns, too, is, they're in here, and there's the song that goes with them, but what the patterns that I chose to teach in the book are really the common patterns that you're going to hear, any rock song on the radio, pop, hip hop, country, pretty much anything that's a popular music style that has drum set playing in it is going to use these patterns.
Right. So the book's been out for a couple months now.
Yeah, we came out right like at the end of the summer.
Interesting. So tell me, how do you feel now being a published author?
It's cool. It's enjoyable. It's funny. I haven't really stopped too much to think about, the kind of like, well, I'm an author now. It's really kind of been more of, how do we push this? My goal was to get more people playing the drums. And it's, the students that I've seen over my career, are the people that are really interested and really proactive, whether they're kids just starting out or adults that, are coming back to it or just decide they want to do it later in life, or, anybody in between, of course. But those are the most driven and motivated people of I have to set out and do this. But I feel like there's a lot of other people who would really enjoy it and who would like to do it and probably want to do it, but maybe you're like, I don't know if I can take all of these steps. So, for me, it's kind of been more of just focus on how to get to more of those people and get the book out there and get them playing.
Right. Well, I know, from my experience, writing and publishing children's books, people used to ask me the same thing. How do you feel now being on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to get this book out to as many people as possible.
That's exactly
I'll worry about that later when we're on, when we sell more copies. But for right now, we've got to get into the hands of these kids.
Right. Exactly.
So I definitely understand. So I know, you mentioned how long it took you to write the book.
Yep.
Two and a half years.
Yeah,
something like that.
The writing was, like I said, when I actually did the Kickstarter a year and a half ago, most of the book was done from a writing standpoint. So it probably only really took, actually the bulk of the book I actually wrote in about 3 weeks. After, after having it in my head planning it out.
The full process.
The full process, yeah, it was about
right.
2.5 years.
So tell me, what was it that? So I'm sure. Were there any moments where it's just an idea? it's not going to work. Maybe like forget about it. Did any of that ever come into play? And also just to add to that, like what kept you going, like from that 3-week process when you finished the book all the way up to that 1.5 plus to actually to get it published?
I don't think I really ever had any doubts about it. Maybe I don't tend to be much of a self-doubter. Sometimes probably I should be, but so I always felt like I knew it could work. All the stuff, the material that's in the book is all things that I had used daily in my teaching. So I knew conceptually that it would work, and I knew that the system would was proven. And I think that there were definitely times that were frustrating where it was like this is grueling, because even once we had finished the Kickstarter, at that point I had figured it was going to be about another 5 to 6 months of work to get the book done, and it ended up being another 13 months. So there were definitely moments during that time where it was like, is this ever going to end? Are we really going to get this done? But fortunately I had really talented collaborators and really supportive wife who was helping me along the way.
Most important.
So I had the boost, but yeah, I don't think I ever really doubted that it would work or that it would get done, and I never really wanted to abandon it. It was more like I just wanted to push harder and actually get the project completed and get the book out.
No, I love it. So tell me, like you mentioned that you have, a library full of books.
Yes.
Right, being a musician, and so if someone else has a bunch they're seeing a bunch of books, right, on music, and they want to learn how to play the drums, and your book is in that mix, what makes your book stand out amongst those other books that are on that bookshelf?
Well, what I found in doing the research, as to what was available, before I really dug into this project, I did look and see what was available, and is somebody doing something kind of like what I wanted to do, and there really is nothing like that. Most of the things that are on the market, right out of the gate, they want you to read music. They throw a ton of things at you. They try to cover a ton of ground. I've looked at all the books, and it's not like it's the stuff that they have is bad, but for somebody who especially doesn't have any musical experience, maybe just wants to have a casual engagement with it, isn't trying to like become a world-class drummer in the next year, this kind of thing, a lot of those books are just overwhelming. And then when I looked at some of the books that were supposed to be like the entry-level beginner books, it was still sort of the same problem. They're throwing a million different things at you from different angles. And the other side of it too is the play-along tracks that we created. We really set out for these to be songs. I've heard a bunch of, there's a lot of music books on the market that come with a play-along CD and, music to play with, and it's awful. It's just poorly produced. It's all kind of cheap and cheesy electronic things, and kind of akin to like what you get out of a Casio keyboard when you put on the auto accompaniment thing. And nobody, I don't know anybody that's really going to be excited by that. So, one of the things we wanted to do with this was say, like, let's make this music that people actually would want to listen to and actually play along with. So, it's all instruments. There's guitar, there's bass, drums, keyboard, layers. We produced the album the way that you would produce a commercial release. There aren't any vocals on it because we didn't want it, we didn't write those kinds of songs. We also didn't want it to be too much of a distraction. We wanted people to focus on the actual drumming part. But otherwise, we really reached for getting the sound and the feel of what you would hear on the radio. Even, to the point of like trying to capture some different styles that are, common. And, so there really wasn't anything like that on the market. And I thought, I just want to make a way that's, you look at it, you go in, like you said, you go in, there's a bunch of books on the shelf, and you take a look at this one and you realize, like, man, I totally understand this. It's not like you're going to open a book and you're going to look at a bunch of crazy music and charts and all these symbols and things where you're like, I don't know what any of that means, and it goes back on the shelf. This book, somebody's going to open up, they're going to see the pictogram, and they're going to go, oh, that makes perfect sense. There is an explanation in the introduction of the book that kind of talks about how to use the book and practice things and stuff, but the way that I tested this out once I actually had the material was to open up to the first pattern without giving anybody the opportunity to look at the intro and say, how do you think this works? And 100% of the people that I did that with, and these were all non-musicians, my in-laws and with, whoever that I could, friends and
people like me.
Yeah, anybody who just, I ran across in my my daily life. And and everybody was able to immediately look at it and within a minute have the whole thing kind of sorted out, and we're playing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's great. No, because sometimes I don't like just like to know what's your 15-second pitch or 30-second pitch, but what really, grasps people to your product, and you really explained it well, differentiating between all those other books.
Yeah.
Outreach, once the book was finished, because you said it's been out for a couple months now. How has it been promoting the book and getting it out to the people who you want to reach to?
So it's sort of been slow and methodical. Obviously, anytime anybody comes out with a product, it's like, I want to just get these out there and sell 1 million of them. But the reality is, in any kind of marketing sense, you have to have a target audience. And so we've sort of started from that point to say, okay, what's the target audience? And really, the idea behind this, on the most obvious audience for this is going to be somebody who wants to learn to play the drums, like somebody who just thought of like, hey, I always wanted to play the drums, let me pick this up. Or, it might be kind of cool to do. But I'm really trying to reach them first. But also, there's tons of research, and there's been dozens of studies done about the benefits of playing music and of drumming in particular. Everything from it alleviates chronic pain and lowers blood pressure, like legitimate medical benefits, also in dealing with social issues, like things like ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, like all of these things have been shown in different studies to be benefit from playing the drums. And then also there's been a lot of research done that shows that drumming in a group or having drumming as a shared activity has all kinds of social and work benefits, which is really what led me into the sort of the corporate and the team building world, which is, there's a lot of research out that says people that drum together work better together. They communicate better, all these kinds of things. So really, my goal is for the person who works maybe in an office, has a busy, stressful job, and needs to, in the middle of their day, say during lunch break, put in the headphones, pop in the CD, and drum along for 15 minutes and kind of reset the brain, alleviate stress, open up the creative channels, all the things that music can bring, especially drumming because it's such a physical activity. So really the whole outreach effort and the marketing has been to say, okay, how do we reach those people? The people who are maybe not necessarily looking to learn to play an instrument or even to learn to play the drums, but are just looking for a way to kind of take a break in their day and maybe generate some new creativity and generate some new ways of thinking. So that's sort of where we're headed and where we're looking.
Yeah, well, I love it. Oh, I love it. I love the fact that you bring, a certain sense of like you care. It's not like I'm just going to push a product. I came up with a good idea, what you thought was a good idea, and you're just like pushing a product down people's throats. Like, here's the thing, to learn music, but you just really want to just want to make money. But I can see that you just really care. One, about the music, obviously,
right?
But care about the people who you're reaching as well, and trying to help them live better lives through music.
Exactly. I mean, that's really the goal here. I mean, for me, I'm in the fortunate minority of people that gets to do the thing that I love the most for my job.
Right.
And that can't work for everybody, and I understand that. But I know like how lucky I am to do this every day, and I know how much it's brought to my life. It's funny because if you were to meet anybody who has known me throughout my life, childhood friends or anybody I went to school with, whatever, if you say, "Oh, BJ, oh yeah, the drummer," it's like that's for me that's kind of been the core of my identity my whole life, and I'm proud of that, and I'm happy for that. And not that I feel like everybody needs to have that as their identity, but I know all of the great things that music and drumming has brought to my life. So that's really kind of the goal here, is to say like, well, can everybody get a piece of that? Not everybody's going to be a professional drummer, and not everybody needs to. And I've always said that to all my students. Like, I don't expect my students to become professional musicians, but I want them to have that in their life, hopefully for the rest of their life, because there's all kinds of great things that come from it. So this is really sort of about getting that past, the circle of people that I can connect and interact with one-on-one or, at close range, and really kind of pushing it out to a further circle.
Right. No, absolutely. You know, I appreciate you just in general. I appreciate you, and
Thanks.
I appreciate your work. So I want you to just let people know like how they can get you know, in contact with you, or even the different avenues online, and they can get the book.
So the main website is armchairdrummer.com. And on the website is, you know, links to buy the book. We also have kind of like what I call the drummer starter pack, which is what we have here. It's the book, some armchair drummer drumsticks, and you know, a little armchair drummer mouse pad, practice pad. It's funny because the sticks and that stuff's not even necessary for the book. The core of the book really is designed that you don't need anything but the book and somewhere that you can sit down, essentially. Right. You know, and do it play it on the table, play it on a chair, whatever. But the other side of that, what he put in the book was, there are going to be, I hope, some percentage of people that do this that say, you know what, I actually want to go past this armchair phase. I actually want to play the drums now because, hey, I've been doing this for a couple months. I'm pretty good at this. I think it sounds pretty cool, and I'm having fun. Maybe I want to play in a band, or, you know, get some friends together and jam on the weekend. So the other half of the book sort of helps steer in all those things. Everything from teaching you how to hold the sticks, a little bit about the history of drumming, a little bit about the rudiments. You know, there's actually even a little tiny piece in there about the kind of beginning of how to read music in case somebody wants to go down that avenue. And there's also a bunch of other information in there. So, you know, what I'm trying to create is this community. So the other part of the website is not just a place to buy the book, but we're building a community there. So, you know, I'm encouraging people that if they have tried the book and they are like, cool, I got this, you know, send in a little bit of your experience. Send us a photo or a video of you playing, you know, one of the patterns or anything like that, so that other people can see and we can create this community. Also going to start featuring, you know, things that kind of curated links of like, hey, check out this drummer. Here's the drummer of the month that everybody should be listening to. Because it's funny, drummers, not every instrument is like this. And there's definitely different personalities that go with different instruments, which sounds kind of funny because you just think, well, musicians are musicians. But in my experience, playing in you know, everything from rock bands to jazz combos to orchestras and everything, you start to notice patterns in different instruments. But what I've also noticed is that in the drum world and in the percussion world, it's very tribal. Drummers love to be around other drummers. And part of what I want people to get from this is that community too. Not just the personal experience of playing the instrument, but like, come on in, welcome to the tribe, join us, you know, and kind of get the culture of drumming. And so there's a lot that goes into that. There is the history, there is the, you know, all those kinds of things. So all of this, you know, the website and the book and everything, I'm trying to put that together so it's like gets more people playing so they get that personal benefit, the health benefits and everything else, but also so that they are stepping into a community and they know that here's a place that I can go online and there's going to be other people like me, and we can talk about this stuff, or I can look at some, you know, what other people are playing and how they're doing it, and oh, that's a cool idea, and maybe I'm going to borrow that.
I love it. I love it. Well, I will definitely be one of those people to share my experiences after using it.
Great.
Share a picture or two, or even a video. So definitely will try it out.
That would be excellent.
I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You've been a great guest. I learned a lot, and I did sift through the book, like I said before we started, and I seen how easy it was. You know, for me, not having a music background, I was kind of skeptical before I opened the book. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, you know, read what he has in the book, but I see it's very easy to play.
We had we were out at an event. I know we're wrapping here, but real quick, we were out at an event, the punk rock flea market down in the city, and we were doing live demo of the stuff. And the average time that it took somebody to like walk up to the booth and be like, "What's this?" and I would explain what it was. Get them we brought the armchair out, get them in the chair and get them playing, and playing with a song was less than 5 minutes. Oh. So it's quick, it's easy, and it's definitely a lot of fun.
Definitely is. Well, I'm going to try it out, and I appreciate you for coming on.
Great,
BJ.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, as always, thank you for tuning in to On the Rise, the motto for this show. Believe in yourself and all things are possible, and BJ is definitely a true testament to that motto. So until next time, we'll see you soon.